Hello everybody, here's another Christmas one for you. I'm using the larger molded stone from the multi-mold from Happy Dot and Company. I'm using a little bit of teal, a little bit of cerulean blue, and a little bit of eggplant purple. And I'm just gonna kind of swipe it on with a brush first while it's nice and wet. And then I'm gonna sponge it out. So I'm gonna kind of blend it all together using a sponge. I'm using a finger sponge, but you can use whatever kind of sponge you want. I find sponges give it a nice, soft, airbrushed look, and there's no brush strokes. I'm not a fan of brush strokes. So I'm going to be using some of my metallic watercolors from this Etsy shop right here. And I'm just swiping on like a little bit of purple where I said there's eggplant purple. You can't really tell by this photo or this video, but there is purple, there is blue, and there is teal. So once I've put on my glittery background, I let it dry. It dries super quick because it's watercolor, and all that glitter stays in place. So whichever color you choose to put there, it's gonna stay, and that's what I love. Instead of using loose glitters all the time, my husband likes this watercolor instead because it doesn't leave a mess. Anyway, I've done like a little bit of snow at the bottom, just sponged it out with a sponge. You can still see it's kind of fuzzy looking. And I've used a sponge to put on some hunter green because this is going to be a cedar gnome. And he's super cute. He's one of the larger gnome families that are existing. He's a little bit taller, and he is in charge of decorating the streets at night while everyone's sleeping. He doesn't want to take all the credit though, because there's a lot of hardworking people out there that do decorate, but he does some, final touches, and he makes it look a little bit more sparkly during the Christmas season. So I've just kind of sponged out some hunter green, and then I used a thicker brush to make some what looks like hair, but it's not really going to be hair. It's going to be cedar. And I'm doing a fuzzy hat to start with. I'm just kind of getting the shape of everything. You can't really see the top of his hat, but hopefully I back up a little bit and you can see it. It's just got a curl at the top. And we're going to paint this red. But first, because it's such a dark background with all that glitter and all that color, I'm using like a base coat of white. Now here I'm using my fine lining brush, and I'm using a lighter green on top of the hunter green now that it's dry. And I'm just kind of defining some cedar boughs so that it kind of looks like cedar. I'm not really going all out with it, but hopefully there's so much of a glare that you can't even really see it right now, and I'm sorry for that. But you'll be able to see it way better very soon. Now I'm going to go in with some bright green, and I'm going to define some of those little bits and pieces of the cedar so that you can see it a little bit better. Later on, we're going to add some glittery greenish gold watercolor paint, the metallic stuff that I love so much. We're going to be adding some of that once this is dry, and that will also make some of the definitions stand out. You can't really see it right now. It just looks like a big old green blobby mess. So I've used some brown for his little boots like it's a tree trunk. So I've used burnt umber. I will list all my colors in the description like I always do. If I forget any, let me know in the comments. Now I'm going to lighten this area up with some white. This is going to be his nose, but it's actually going to be a pine cone. It doesn't look like it's, whoops, see the green's coming through. I have to let that dry. I get so impatient. I'm going to let that dry, and we're going to turn it brown and turn it into a pine cone for his nose. Now you did see the hat a little bit better. We're going to work on that later, but it's just looped over. It's really simple, nothing too fancy. I'm not going all out. He's, busy at night, and he's a little bit taller than your standard gnome. So he gets to decorate street lamps and stuff like that. And he doesn't get cold either. So he actually likes the winter months. He does wear mittens. He'll be wearing a nice little pair of blue mittens as well. I'm just kind of getting the general idea. I want him to be close to the height of this street lamp. You can see it's pretty simple. I'm just doing a little V right here so that I can make the street lamp look like it has a little bit of, I don't know, 3D to it. It's not going to look at all like a real street lamp, let's just say. But I'm trying to give it some coolness, make it cool. So now that it's dry, I'm going to paint the inside of these little windows white because once again, we're going to have to make that bright again because of the dark background. And you can pause this. You can also slow down the video if you are having a hard time with how fast I'm going. But you can definitely pause it as many times as you need to. And I'm going to be right here when you are ready to come back. So watch it as many times as you need to and slow it down. Just pause it, like mute my voice so I don't sound like a horrible Christmas monster. So I'm just sponging on some red. You can pick whichever color hat and gloves you want to put on him. If you don't even like the idea of him being a cedar gnome, it's totally up to you what you do with this. Totally up to you. I'm just here. You know what I'm going to say. I'm just here to inspire. So I'm going to make his white portion a little more fluffy, give it another coat of white. You can see his nose isn't green anymore. I made that, another coat of white. Now we're going to turn it into a pine cone. Now, I don't think I've ever painted a pine cone before, so this is going to be interesting. I'm just making sure that his boots have 2 coats of brown as well. I'm trying to find the shape of a pine cone, and I'm trying to look at Google images of pine cones. I don't know. This might not look very good when we're done. But anyway, the whole idea is that he's a cedar gnome and he has a pine cone nose. And he decorates the streets at night. So there. That's my story and I'm sticking to it. I just pray that it doesn't end up looking like something the dog left in the yard. So I will be adding lots of glitter, lots of color to this because that's what I like to do. And if you did see my last tutorial, I did some Christmas lights on the side of Snoopy's doghouse. We're going to be doing some Christmas lights here too. It's going to be kind of the same technique. I want them to be nice and bright, and they're already plugged in. He's testing them all out before he wraps them up around the street lamp. And, he's a diligent, hardworking cedar gnome. So I put some moon yellow and some white into the inside of those windows of the street lamp. And I'm trying to make it look as though there's like a nice glow coming from there. It is nighttime, by the way. I don't see any people around. And I'm going to use some gold to define some of the bits and pieces of the lamp, but I'm not going to totally outline all of it for sure. It's just going to kind of swipe the paintbrush just to define certain areas. And we're going to be cleaning up the snow and making it glittery. We're going to be making the lights glitter as well. But first, he needs hands. He can't hold lights if he doesn't have hands. I'm just using a nice bright blue. I believe it's Cayman blue, but I will list it in the description so that you are sure of what color I used. And that way, you didn't like this color, you know not to use that color. Or maybe you love it. So I'm just using my blending brush now and then, like right now. It's just a tiny little blending brush. I have a tutorial on how I make them. I cut them up and make them into a blending brush so that it's like a baby sponge. That's what it is. It's a baby sponge with a long stick. And so yeah, check out the tutorial. I'm just using it to blend in some white at the top of the boots. And I also sponged on the gloves to get rid of the brush strokes. And now I'm going to make this snow look a little bit nicer, not so fuzzy. Using a finger sponge again. Just put another coat of white on And now, a little bit more gold on the lantern. Street lamp, street lantern, street light. What do you call them? I'm putting a little bit of snow as well, because there's snow on the ground. Why wouldn't there be snow in other places? Just use your imagination, folks. So I'm adding a little bit of darker red, so it's berry wine, because this red is pretty bright on his hat. So I'm just gonna give the hat some texture and some shading, I guess. Just so it's not just plain old red. It's 2 shades of red. Now I'm outlining the white part. I'm also going to put white pom-pom on the end of his hat. It will look very similar to the white part that's on the bottom of his hat right now. I'm just defining his gloves. I am going to put a little white snowflake on the one glove where you can see the top of the hand, not the side of the hand. I'm outlining my pine cone. I hope that's what you guys see. Why not just have fun with it, right? Just have fun with it. That's all you got to do. Somebody will love it very, very much. So I'm making sure everything's outlined properly. You didn't really have to do too much with this guy. He's pretty simple. I think probably the street lamp is more difficult to paint than the gnome at this point. But I'm just making his hat wrinkly here and there. Just fixing everything. Making sure it's all the way I want it to be, because we're going to be putting some lights on last. We're going to do lights and then we're going to do glitter. So as if the background wasn't glittery enough, right? You guys are like, Rachel, this is definitely overkill. Hey, everything glitters at Christmas, right? Everything glitters this time of year. You can't, go into a store without walking out with glitter on the side of your nose. Like it's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's not on his pine cone nose. I might add a little bit of gold to his pine cone though. So I'm just going to put some little dots at the wrist of his gloves, and then just a teeny little dotted snowflake on this one. That's it. That's it. The other one's kind of like going to be holding up some lights, so you can't see the snowflake. It's on the other side of his glove, right? It's common sense. Once again, if you don't like the blue gloves, you can paint them whichever color you want. You can give them little cedar hands if you want. It's up to you. Now I'm sorry, once again, I forgot to adjust my camera. I moved up to the hat again, and you can't even see anything at all that I'm doing. But basically I'm just making a pom-pom. There we go. I'm outlining my street lamp. Gonna wait for the pom-pom to dry, then I'll outline that as well with black. There's the gold on the pine cone. Please tell me in the comments, does that look like a pine cone, or does it look like dog poop, or does it look like a little chocolate nougat? Please, I hope for good comments. I hope it looks like a pine cone. That's all I have to say. So I'm using some hunter green, and I'm just kind of making he's testing it. He's testing these lights out, right? So he's got to make sure they work before he wraps them up around the street lamp. So he's got to plug it into his extension cord, which is attached to his little traveling cart, and it has a generator on it. So use your imagination, people. He's got to test everything. So his pom-pom is dry. It looks similar to the other white part in his hat. He's been doing this a long time. He doesn't mind if his hat looks a little raggedy. He's good. It's warm. So here's the lights. Now what I'm doing is I'm using my little blending brush. If you have a tiny little sponge, that will work great as well. And I'm just kind of sponging. I'm sponging a little glow there with moon yellow. Then I'm going to do the little part that the light bulb plugs into. And then I'm going to do a little light bulb. I'm not worried about the shape at all. Don't cry about the shape of my bulbs, okay? They're all going to be random shapes and sizes, just like humans. We're not allowed to make fun of them. Ever. So I'm going to do that with a bunch of different colors: red, blue, yellow, orange, maybe some purple. I don't know yet. But it's going to be the same technique with each color. And then once those are dry, that's when I'm going to bring in the metallic water paints again, watercolors, and I'm going to go around that glowy area with metallic watercolors so that it really kind of shines once we seal it with resin. So I mentioned, I believe in my last tutorial, that I was going to be making my own glittery, beautiful watercolor to try out and sell in my Etsy shop. It's a long process, but it's actually very, very therapeutic. I really enjoy doing it, and hopefully I will be getting better and better each time I make some. And you guys can let me know if you purchase any of my little buttons in my shop. I'm just calling them watercolor buttons because I'm not selling like pans or half pans. Right now it's just going to be buttons until I get into the groove of it all and I can perfect my watercolor, because I'm very new at this. But it really helps accent your acrylic paintings, or you can paint beautiful backgrounds on top of black acrylic paint. You can paint anything on top of black acrylic paint with these metallic watercolors, and they look absolutely beautiful. So I'm going to show you some of the colors that I've made. Instead of doing a what's at my desk, I'm going to show you my watercolor buttons and my watercolor paints and sped up process of how I do it. But they will be available in my shop this afternoon. A couple of samples of them will be available, and I'm hoping to make them affordable because I know I have spent a huge amount of money on metallic watercolor paints and the shipping. So yeah, my husband's happy that I'm learning how to make them myself. But I did ask for more for Christmas. I want to make them for others and make them affordable and make it fun for everyone to, like, you know, upgrade their artwork with a little bit of, you know, metallic watercolor paint. As you can see from the last few tutorials, you can do a lot of really cool things with the watercolors. So, why not give everyone the chance to do that, right? So check out my Etsy shop. The link is in the description of this video, or in the About section on my YouTube channel as well. And you can check them out and see for yourself what you think and experiment with them. But you'll see, before I resin this guy, you'll see what my watercolor paints look like. So I did decide to go with some purple. So I've used some cobalt blue, some orange, yellow, bright red, and perfect purple. And there's going to be a perfect purple one hiding behind his right shoulder there as well, because I didn't have a space for 3 purple ones. I tried to make it as even as possible with all the colors that I'm using. And I didn't use green. I know there are usually green on a Christmas strand of lights, but there's a lot of green on him. So I didn't want to overpower everything with green. But you can do that if you want. Now that my bulbs are dry, I'm using just a little tiny bit of white paint, just making them a little bit shinier looking. And I'm not like outlining the whole thing again. I'm just kind of swiping the paintbrush over. I'm not being perfect about it, but I'm just giving each one some definition, and then the glow is still on the outside of the bulb, and it looks really, really pretty. And that glow is what we're going to make shimmer with watercolor paints. So I've got all my lights on. They all work. He's ready to wrap them around that beautiful street lamp and do it before everybody wakes up in the morning, because you would not believe your eyes. if you saw him. So I'm just adding a little bit of gold to the little bits that the bulbs are attached to. I just wanted to kind of define those a little bit more. You know me with gold. I need to put it away sometimes. I need to just give it a rest. No, I would have nightmares. I really would. I love my gold paint. I need to buy more. Hopefully there is some at Michael's when I go later on. So he's looking pretty good. I'm just going to give some shading here underneath his nose and underneath his hat. It's just a little bit darker. I'm just using hunter green there, which is the darkest base coat that I did for his cedar beard. So I'm going to be adding some gold watercolor, just a little bit. You can see it sizzling there on his cedar branches. Just defining some of the little bits and pieces. I'm not going too thick with it. It's pretty watered down. Then I'm putting a little glow around each one of the lights. I'm using individual, like red around the red and orange around the orange. You know. But go easy on top of acrylic paint, because if you get it too wet, you might lift up your acrylic paint. So just go easy. Don't use too much water. That's one of my biggest tips. You only need a little bit of water to activate that watercolor. So this watercolor is all from the Etsy shop that I've purchased a bunch from. Her stuff is magnificent. I will get caught on there like multiple times while I'm supposed to be doing something else. Like I'm supposed to be stirring the veggies or, flipping the burgers or something. And I'm on Etsy staring at her watercolors. Jeannie, I love your watercolors. Her Etsy site is in the description of this video. I'm just putting a little bit of like a goldish colored glitter on top of the snow. And it's not going to be very noticeable. None of the glitter is going to be that noticeable until I resin it. So that's going to be a nice surprise when it's done. So very, very soon you're going to see this resin, but hold tight, because first we're going to take a look at how I make my watercolors. And if you guys are interested in a tutorial, I'm still learning. I don't know my stuff yet. I'm a very much so beginner. So I don't want to do too much yet until I know what I'm doing, but we'll see. I'm just making sure it works for me really well before I share with you. That's all. That's the way I am. So I'm just adding a little bit of a glow around the street lamp here, because I just thought that it needed that, because it is on and it's nighttime, and why not? Why not add more of a glow? He looks pretty cute. He's going to look really cute in a stand, I think. This rock is perfect for making all sorts of different things. I love it. I love the molded, or the rock molds from Happy Dot & Company. Make sure if you visit Happy Dot & Company, use my discount code Rachel's Rocks Canada. But here we go, guys. I'm going to show you a little something. This is my watercolor pigment and binder. I mix it for a very long time and smooth it out. Make sure there's no lumps and bumps, and it takes a long time. But then you get to use it. A little goes a long way. So if you are testing out my paint buttons, they last for a long time. Trust me. You can do a lot of rocks with a lot of really pretty accents, all with just a little tiny button of paint. So that's what I'm offering in my shop. These are all the colors I currently have, all in button form. And this is what they look like when they're dry on top of a black background. But they also are great accent, like we did today on our gnome. They make excellent, those are paint buttons, excellent accents. Look at all the glitter and the shine around the lights and the background, and the cedar gnome himself. He's pretty shiny. I had a lot of fun with this one, you guys. I really hope that I'm giving you some creative ideas to work with. You might be bored over the next couple of weeks, but I love you. I'll be back very soon with a new one. Keep painting, guys.